"I can't afford this meal," she said, and walked away. And what I did brought her to tears. The young woman stood frozen near the diner door, her eyes filled with embarrassment as she gently held her little daughter close. The child stared at the food on nearby tables with quiet hunger, while the mother looked down at the few crumpled bills in her hand. A moment later, she whispered that she couldn't afford the meal, turned around, and started walking away. What happened next changed not only her day, but mine as well. Before we continue, if you believe kindness can change lives and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone you care about, and subscribe to Ripple of Light. Your support helps spread more stories that remind us of the good still left in the world. It was a rainy afternoon when I stopped at a small roadside diner after a long day of work. The place wasn't fancy. The booths were old, the coffee smelled strong, and soft country music played from a radio behind the counter. I sat alone near the window, enjoying a simple meal and watching the rain slide down the glass. That's when I noticed her. She looked exhausted, maybe in her late 20s, wearing a simple blue dress that had clearly seen better days. Beside her stood a little girl, no older than 5, holding tightly onto her mother's hand. The child looked tired and hungry, but she remained quiet, as if she already understood that life had been difficult lately. The woman studied the menu for a long time. Her eyes moved from one item to another before finally stopping. She reached into her purse and counted what little money she had. Her shoulders slowly dropped. The hope on her face disappeared. A waitress approached their table, and after a brief conversation, the woman gave a sad smile. She quietly apologized, stood up, and headed toward the exit. The little girl looked back at the dining room one last time before following her mother out the door. Something about that moment hit me harder than I expected. Maybe it was the way the child tried to be brave. Maybe it was the look of disappointment the mother was desperately trying to hide. Whatever it was, I couldn't ignore it, without thinking twice. I stood up and asked the waitress to prepare the biggest meal the diner could make. I paid for everything in advance and asked her to pack extra food for later. Then, I rushed outside before they disappeared down the street. The rain had become heavier. The woman and her daughter were walking slowly along the sidewalk. I called out and handed her the bags. At first, she looked confused. Then she realized what was happening. Tears instantly filled her eyes. She tried to refuse, but I gently insisted. I told her there was more than enough food and that no child should go hungry if someone could help. The little girl peeked inside one of the bags and smiled so brightly that it seemed to light up the entire gray afternoon. That's when the mother finally broke down. Through tears, she explained that she had recently lost her job. Rent was overdue. Her husband had passed away the previous year after a long illness. Every day had become a battle between paying bills and buying food. That morning, she had promised her daughter they would have a warm meal together, only to discover she didn't have enough money. As she spoke, I realized how many struggles people carry without anyone noticing before leaving. I slipped a small envelope into one of the bags. Inside was enough money to cover groceries for several weeks. I didn't mention it because I didn't want her to feel embarrassed. The next morning, I returned to the diner. The waitress smiled. The moment she saw me, she handed me a folded note that had been left at the counter. The letter was from the young mother. She wrote that when she found the envelope, she cried for nearly an hour. Not because of the money, but because for the first time in months, someone had seen her struggle and cared. She said her daughter spent the evening laughing, eating, and smiling again. She ended the note with words I will never forget. Sometimes a stranger's kindness can restore a person's faith in life. Years later, I still keep that letter, not because I think I did something extraordinary. I keep it because it reminds me that even the smallest act of compassion can become someone's turning point. If this story touched your heart, please comment below. Kindness still exists. I'd love to see how many people believe that one small act of love can change a life. As this story comes to an end, remember that many people around us are fighting battles we cannot see. A kind word, a helping hand, or a simple gesture may mean far more than we ever imagine. And if this story moved you, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Ripple of Light. Your engagement helps these messages of hope reach more people who may need them today. Because sometimes, the greatest miracles don't come from wealth or power. They come from ordinary people choosing kindness when someone needs it most. Bye.